From the Mosquito Experiment to the Great Leap Forward, here are your top 10 evil events in history we were never taught about in school. But before we dive into today's video, I want to give a shout out to today's video sponsor, Magellan TV. Magellan TV is a hidden jewel in the streaming service world, a service that streams documentaries and documentary series. It's the best value of any premium documentary streaming service in both price and quality. It's the highest rated documentary streaming app on Google Play. Magellan TV is all about the drama of real life, the lives of ancient pharaohs, critical battles in the World Wars I and II, soldiers who fought in the Civil War, the battles for control of the British Crown, the Norman Conquest, etc. Magellan TV has the largest and best collection of history shows anywhere. Speaking of which, the documentary that I enjoyed with my subscription is called War on Witches. This documentary takes us back to the beginning of the witch trials that took place all over Europe before hitting the infamous Salem in Massachusetts. It's essentially the origin story. King James VI was a deeply paranoid man whom dealt with having many targets on his back and with being abandoned when he was little. So it's no wonder as to how he got to such a paranoid mental state that he ended up fueling the start of this era. He believed that he was the target of sorcery and curses. It was interesting to learn about all of the elements that would have him believe so fully in witchcraft, and it definitely made me think deeper about how our life experiences shape our beliefs and perspective on the world. This documentary is definitely a must-see if you are fascinated by this era or love watching history documentaries. Magellan TV adds over 20 plus hours of new content weekly. 4K is always included in your subscription, and here's the best part, no ads ever. Claim your special offer for Magellan TV by clicking the link in our description box below. Start your free trial today so you can watch the War on Witches about the start of the witch trials and the rest of Magellan TV's history collection. In our number 10 spot, we have the Mosquito Experiment. This experiment is truly the most surprising one to me on this list. I cannot believe how many people don't know about this. Apparently in 1956 and 1957, the US Army conducted a series of experiments on Georgia, Florida, and Savannah where millions of infected mosquitoes were released into the public in order to see if insects could spread yellow fever. The result? Well, they learned that indeed they can. Of course, at the expense of the American people's health, as many died, many developed fevers, respiratory problems, stillbirths, and so much more. Allegedly, researchers posed as public health workers and asked people if they needed help in order to get close to them and observe them. Pretty evil in my opinion, and makes you wonder and hope that nothing like that is happening to us right now, but possibly at this moment in time, we are not aware of it. If you're liking this video so far, don't forget to smash that like button as it will really help us out. In our number 9 spot, we have the Black Death. The Black Death is definitely one of the craziest events in history that is definitely taught about in some schools, but as this was so long ago, it's not as frequently spoken about like World War I and II, for example. It is also known by its other labels, the Great Plague or the Black Plague. And as you can tell by the title, it was a horrible widespread pandemic that killed from 75 to 200 million people. They say at least half of Europe at the time. It took place in 1346 to 1353. As you can imagine, such a plague during a time where no one could stay indoors and communicate online, there was mass chaos everywhere. People blamed religion, witchcraft, and anything they could blame. There's a very famous painting by the name of The Triumph of Death by Peter Bruegel that is supposed to be depicting the chaos of that time. There is so much death and things on fire, the painting is truly haunting to look at. In our number 8 spot, we have government testing. In 1954, the US government performed a series of nuclear tests in the Pacific Ocean called Castle Bravo, and the explosion occurred a little too close to the Marshall Islands, and it heavily impacted the people there. The Marshallese people had radiation poisoning, beta burns, and of course, as you can imagine, many developed cancer. After this event, the US created a new project called Project 4.1, where they examined and studied the after effects of the explosion on the Marshallese people, and many wondered, was the explosion perhaps on purpose so that the US could study the effects on these people? Now that would be a truly horrific thing if proven to be true, not that anyone would ever be able to find that out, but regardless, why don't more people know about this very serious event in history? I bet you the Marshallese people are still dealing with after effects. In our number 7 spot, we have the Nanking Massacre. The Nanking Massacre took place in 1937 to 1938, and even though it was only 1 year, a significant amount of damage was done. This was a time when the Japanese Imperial Army invaded invaded Nanking, China, and a series of killings and many other brutal forms of torture took place. It has been estimated that over 300,000 died, and the women were ordered to do unspeakable things to their offspring. It's quite horrific, so I cannot go into detail, otherwise YouTube will censor the video, but it's wild to me that not many know about this horrible event in history. In our number 6 spot, we have the Great Leap Forward. In Canada, we are taught a little bit about world history and then our own Canadian history, but I was never taught about this catastrophe, so I thought I would include it in this list. If you were taught this, then that's good, because this is definitely an event that everyone needs to know about. Between 1958 to 1962, a policy was put in place implemented by Mao Zedong, who was the chairman of the Communist Party in China, and this policy led to the death of up to 45 million people. How was this policy even implemented? Well, under the disguise of distributing the wealth and making everyone equal as a sort of utopian paradise, so that their country could surpass their competitors. But this quickly turned into people not being given food, which led to a projected 25 million dying of starvation, and when incentives to work were removed, violence was used to motivate people. Oh, and did I mention that food was only given to those that followed the party's every order? Pretty horrific, and crazy to think that my mom and dad were alive when this happened. It was not that long ago. In our number 5 spot, we have the Taiping Rebellion. The Taiping Rebellion, also known as the Taiping Civil War in 1850, was a massive civil war that took place in China. The French, British, and American mercenaries were all involved. The country had suffered some major disasters, natural and economic, before the rebellion began, so as you can imagine, they were quite vulnerable. Also, apparently the Europeans brought an opium addiction to China. At the time, the Qing dynasty ruled China, and during this period, in comes a man named Hong Zhuang, who claimed to be the younger brother of Jesus Christ. This war lasted till August of 1871. It is known as one of the bloodiest civil wars in history, killing 20 million people. In our number 4 spot, we have two heads. This is one of the most evil things on this list, and for anyone that likes dogs, this one may break your heart. This was a Russian scientist in the 50s by the name of Vladimir Demikov, and he ended up being the founder of human organ transplants, which arguably is one of the greatest discoveries in the last 100 years. The amount of lives this discovery has saved is probably unfathomable. So to think that before this discovery, the same doctor was performing head transplants on dogs for fun for 5 years, it's just so hard to believe. In our number 3 spot, we have amusement park deaths. A lot of people don't realize this, but many amusement parks around the world have had tragedies. Ironically, because these are places you would hope to go to feel joy, not sadness. Lake Shawnee Amusement Park is one example of a park that experienced one too many tragedies. The park was located in West Virginia from 1926 to 1966, and it had quite a few deaths on its hands while it was active. People believe that the land was cursed though, because before the park opened in 1783, many young European settlers were killed on the grounds by the natives in that area because the grounds were already a sacred burial area for them before the new settlers took over the land. People believe that all of the bloodshed left a mark on the energy of the area, and that is why the park never had a chance. In our number 2 spot, we have the Soviet deaths. Here we have yet another event where the government has put policies into place under the cause of making the country more economically and socially competitive, but yet the people suffer tremendously because of it. From 1917 to 1953, under the Soviet Union, approximately 49 million Russians died from a combination of revolution, starvation, and the forced resettlement, similar to the Great Leap Forward policy. Apparently, this initiative was due to one man, Joseph Stalin. It has been said that this desire to build a new and better country at any cost and to keep his power is the direct reason for all of these deaths. In our number 1 spot, we have the Mongolian Conquests. This is something people certainly know a little bit about, but perhaps not the extent of it. Certainly those of us in North America are not taught much, but that's probably because it didn't take place here and there's just so much history to learn. The Mongol Empire was one of the largest in the world, covering 16% of the earth at one point. It was run by Genghis Khan, a man who is said to have more blood on his hands than anyone in history. Approximately 60 million died under his ruling, and also many women were severely harmed during this time by the men, and it is said that Genghis Khan alone may have reproduced a ton of children, as people say that he had about 500 secondary wives. Yikes. I'm Melissa Melotti, and I hope that you have a good day, sir.